Hello and good morning friends, welcome to CEC live lectures. Dear friends, today we are going to continue with our series on business organization and management. And in the series, in the first half we would be talking on principles of organizing, whereas in the second half we would be discussing on authority, accountability and responsibility. And for this discussion we have once again with us in our studios Dr. V.V. Arya. Dr. Arya is Assistant Professor in Department of Commerce, Shahid Bhagat Singh College, University of Delhi. Dr. Arya has immense experience and he always believe in giving maximum of his knowledge and sharing his experience with the students. Therefore, through the live lectures, he gives his utmost. Dear friends, if you want to ask questions from Dr. V.V. Arya on today's topic, then you can call us right in the studio. You can contact us through our toll-free number. Our number is 1800-110-430. I repeat, our number is 1800-110-430. All friends watching us right now are requested to call in the last 10 minutes of the lecture so that first you could have deep insight into today's topic, that is today's two sessions, and yes, of course, in the last 10 minutes we promise to give answers to your questions from Dr. V.V. Arya. So let's welcome our guest Dr. V.V. Arya and let's try to understand the topics, principles of organizing as well as authority, accountability and responsibility. Hello sir, welcome to the lecture.
Thank you. Dear viewers, as far as the last lecture series of this particular topic was concerned, we have referred the organization, the organizational structure. In this particular case, in continuation to that, we would like to refer the important principles of organizing that are the key in terms of referring the organizational setup, the functioning, while referring the structure of the employees and as well as the relations between the superior and subordinates. So let's refer the organizing process, what exactly organizing is. It is a process through which the different human resources, their allocation can be synchronized in such a manner so that they can make a good environment, a harmonious environment, as well as the working does not hamper the working of the organization. So in a way we can say that organizing is a process where the cordial relation or the kind of accountability, the kind of authority and the responsibility relationship grooms. So we can refer now the organization, what exactly the organizing process is or the concept is. It is deciding about how best or group and synchronize organizational activities and the resources, and as well as we can refer it as a process of grouping together human resources. This ultimately establishes relationship between personnel through departmentalization, because different departments are there. They will have the kind of interlinkages, say for example the finance, marketing, human resources and any other department. Similarly, the task allocation to every group and individual employee is ensured in such a manner so that everyone's role in terms of authority and responsibility is ascertained. Now, if we refer the important components in the case of organizing, then depending on the organizational structure and the resources available, especially the human resources available, they can be structured into this pyramid. The first one is the organizational mission, which has to be referred in a detailed manner, because this mission has to be the one which will be followed by the subsequent authorities. Maybe it is the subordinates or the superior. Subsequently, the project objectives have to be referred, which will be aligned in according to the organizational mission, which include the cost, performance and the schedule. Then we have the project goals, which is the sub part of the objective. In order to fulfill the objectives or to meet the objectives, certain goals have to be referred. Then subsequently we have the project strategies, which include the goals and objectives and the relevant policies that need to be formed. Subsequently we have the organizational structure. Different structure we have already referred in our previous lecture. That may include the project structure, matrix structure, functional, line or the mixed kind of structure. Subsequently we have another important component called the project team roles that defines the kind of authority, the kind of responsibility and the accountability subsequently. Then we have the systems, which include the integrated entity to support project activities. We also have to refer the important component called the style of working, that may include the manner, that may include the knowledge, that may include the skill, as well as the experience of the human resources. We also have to refer the project resources in terms of the quality and the quantity of the resources available within the organization. As far as the principles of organizing is concerned, we will be referring near about 13 principles, although there are some more principles are also there. But these are the 13 important principles we will be referring, and which will include unity of command, the principle of unity of command, the principle of unity of direction, principle of span of control, division of work, functional definition, principle of scalar chain, principle of subordination of individual interest over the general interest, principle of adequate authority, principle of responsibility, principle of exception, flexibility, principle of centralization and decentralization, and last, principle of initiative. We will be discussing each one of them in the subsequent session. So now we have to refer the unity of command. Unity of command is very important. The moment we are deviating from it, it can lead to a kind of confusion among the subordinates, and as a result, it will lead to a kind of collapse in the system. Unity of command defines that there has to be one boss for a single subordinate. If there are two bosses or multiple bosses for an individual, as a result, one individual as a subordinate has to receive multiple orders. As a result, he won't be able to concentrate which one to accept, which one to obey, and which one to be taken as the secondary one. Therefore, this is one of the important principle of organizing. And as far as the visual, if you can refer, then in this particular case, the first one, you will find that this is the most appropriate approach where the unity of command has been followed, as well as in the second visual, unity of command is not followed. As a result, these three subordinates will find a kind of confusion environment, and as a result, two superior will not get the order done or the work done through the order they have issued. And in fact, in this particular case, you will find that it is a more disciplined manner. It establishes or a kind of well-organized manner in the organization. Each employee should know clearly to whom he is supposed to take the orders, and exactly he also have to refer to whom he is answerable. So these are some of the important aspects with reference to this unity of command. Subsequently, if we refer to the advantages of unity of command principle in organizing, then we'll find it is important in terms of decision making. It is important in terms of saving their time, as well as some of the other important advantages or the benefits are also there, like in terms of clarity on authority, responsibility, and the accountability aspect. It helps in quick decisions and avoid any confusion, and it is effective coordination among team members. It brings effective coordination. It leads to higher productivity, and it is for the betterment of discipline environment. And if we refer the second principle of the important principle of the functioning, organizing in this particular case, then we will find unity of direction. This is another important one subsequent to the unity of command. In this particular case, one head, one plan concept has to be followed. It means that depending on the organization or the departmentalization, the head or the head of the institution, or so-called the top of the department head, has to refer a specific plan that will be in alignment with the overall plan of the organization, and each group of organization activities that have same objective should be directed by one manager using one plan. Subsequently, there is a kind of grouping of the activities. For example, marketing, finance, production can be grouped together, and accordingly the concerned department will have to look after the concerned plan according to that. And if we refer the two other important principles, that is the unity of action and unity of command, then without unity of direction, these two different principles, unity of action and unity of command, cannot take place. Now, if we refer a kind of similarity and the kind of differences between the unity of command and unity of direction, then we can find out the kind of differences between the two. Although they seems to be similar, but there are specific differences as far as the concept of unity of command is concerned. A subordinate should receive order from one boss only. But in the case of unity of direction, one head and one plan concept is there, which is meant for the group of activities having similar objective. That means it related to the specific department. As far as the dealing of this respective principle is concerned, unity of command is referred to the personals, functioning of the personals, and as far as the unity of direction is concerned, it refers to the organization as a whole or department as an individual entity. When we refer the benefits or the advantage aspect of unity of command, it avoids a kind of confusion or the conflict among the employees, and as far as the kind of benefit of unity of direction is concerned, it helps in terms of wastage of time if it is there, or a kind of overlapping of work is there, so that can be sidelined through the unity of direction. And as far as the outcome or the result or the final result of the respective principles are concerned, unity of command helps in terms of better superior-subordinate relations, while in the case of unity of direction, a smooth functioning of the department will be there. Now, the third important principle of functioning in the case of organizing is span of control. This is another important principle. In this particular case, the kind of or the number of employees or the subordinate with reference to the supervisor or the supervisor will be determined. Especially the number is determined in this particular case. The larger is the number of subordinates with reference to the superior, it will be more wider one, and if there is a less number of subordinates with reference to the one supervisor or superior, then it will be assumed as a narrow span of control. There are two type of span of control. So if we can see in the case of first visual, there is a span of 4 span of control. In this particular case, it means that one superior will have 4 subordinate. Subsequently, you will find there are almost 7 level or 7 layers of the hierarchy in the organization. At the same time, in the other visual, there are around 5 layers of the organization. It means the first superior is having 8 subordinates under him. It means it is a wider nature, wider span of control is there, and ultimately if both the organizations are to be referred, then both the organizations are having almost 4096 employees. But as far as the number of managers are concerned, then above to the last level, if we refer or compile or sum up these cases, then we will find that in this particular organization, it is near about 1365 managers are there. It means summation of this and this. At the same time, in the other nature of this organization, which is following wide span of control, there is only 585 managers are there. And the difference of managers in these two nature of organizations, that is the narrow span of control organization and the wider span of control organization, the difference is 780. It means this wider span of control organization is having less number of managers, which is a better decision for the organization, and depending on the objective, depending on the nature of the organization, it can be narrow span of control, there can be wider span of control. And if we refer the kind of comparison between these two different type of span of control, then we can find a kind of structure over here. In this particular case, it is having almost 4-tier hierarchy, first, second, third and fourth, as well as in the case of wide span of control, it is having 2 layers of hierarchy. In the case of narrow span of control, there is a large number of manager required. In the case of wide span of control, less number of manager can fulfill the objective of the organization. In the case of narrow span of control, more layers level in the hierarchy required. In this present case, almost 4 layers are there, which is 2 in the case of wide span of control. In the case of narrow span of control, it allows close supervision of subordinates, because in this particular case, less number of subordinates are there aligned with the superior, which is not there in the case of wide span of control. In this particular case, one superior is having almost 5 subordinates under him. So in this particular case, more independence lies with the subordinate, and a kind of complex control has to be followed by the superior. And we refer, as far as the communication is concerned, then in this particular case, more effective communication is required in the case of narrow span of control, which is less effective, as well as poor control in the case of wide span of control, because large number of subordinate has to be controlled by a single superior. As far as the appropriateness of narrow span of control is concerned, it is less appropriate, because as far as the cost of the labor or the paying to the employees is concerned, a large amount of cost will have to be incurred to the organization in such case, which is very less in the case of the wide span of control, because in this particular case, the large number of employees or the managers will not be there. As far as the merits and demerits of these two different type of span of control are concerned, then it is in the case of narrow span of control, it is advantages in terms of close supervision, close control, and fast communication. As far as its limitation are concerned, it is bit in terms of superior too much involvement in subordinated work. They have to tightly refer to the kind of supervision through the subordinates, and there are many number of layers or the level of management will be there. So therefore, the kind of organization, for example, in the case of banks or the retail organizations, this kind of layer or this kind of narrow span of control can be referred. It also refer in terms of its demerits. It is having high cost due to many levels or the layers. And if you refer the merits and demerits of the wide span of control, then it is advantage in terms of superiors are forced to delegate. Clear policies must be made in terms of the wide span of control. Subordinates must be carefully selected, else the main focus of the superior will be diverted to the maximum extent towards the supervision or control of the subordinates. And as far as the limitations are concerned, then there is a danger of superior loss of control, and as well as there is a tendency of overloaded superiors to become decision bottlenecks. And there is one more limitation in this particular case, that it required exceptional quality of managers. For example, the motivational qualities, the supervision qualities, and the control qualities or the direction qualities. And as far as the important factors that influence the span of control is concerned, then to the maximum extent, wide span of control is referred to the maximum extent, especially with reference to the factors called managerial abilities, competence of subordinates in terms of capable, competent, better understanding. And if the nature of work is repetitive, then again in such cases, the wide span of control is referred. When the delegation of authority in terms of the efficient and proper way or no confusion is there, then again wide span of control is referred. And as far as the degree of decentralization is concerned, then authority shared by many people and managers at different levels are concerned, then again in such cases the wide span is referred. But if there is a reverse, it means these factors are not referring as such, then in such cases the narrow span of control can be referred, and especially where the nature of work is basically mental skill based or craftsmanship is there or tight control and supervision is required, then in such cases narrow span of control can be a better option. Now if you refer the fourth division of work, the fourth principle of the organizing, then in this particular case division of work is the next one. In this particular case, the overall work can be subdivided into different tasks or say smaller specialized tasks. It basically enables better concentration and specialization, because in this particular case a small task can be assigned to an individual based on his capability, experience, qualification and the specialization. If we refer the another fifth number of principle of organizing, then functional definition is important. In this particular case, the superior are required to define the clear-cut objectives. All functions in the department should be completely and clearly defined to the managers and the subordinate, because in this particular case the duties, responsibilities and the kind of authority relationship is clearly defined to each individual in the department or in the interdepartmental relationship. It also helps the managers in terms of coordination and organization as such. For example, if the primary function of production, marketing and finance and the authority responsibility relationship in these departments should be clearly defined to every person attached to that department. As a result, any confusion, any guidance is required, then the subordinates can interact with each other, or the kind of confusion can be avoided to the maximum extent. Now, if we refer the another sixth number of principle, that is the scalar chain principle, then this is important in terms of to whom one should contact and to whom one should respond. So this is a kind of clear-cut authority and responsibility relationship. One has to be very clear in terms of knowing to whom one has to respond and to whom one has to refer in terms of any confusion or kind of clarity. So for example, in this particular pyramid, that is the scalar chain pyramid, we can have two different scalar chain. One is between A, B, C, D, E and F employees. It means the upper one is the authority and subsequently the other one at the lower end going towards the subordinates. At the same time, there is another scalar chain, that is L, M, N, O, P. We can refer it in terms of the two different departments. Say this may be say marketing, this may be for example finance. But what happen, E has to respond to D, or E can delegate the kind of authority to F. But in this particular case, if required to have some consultation or any emergency required to get some clarification from the other department, from say O as employee, which is again, so in this particular case, if we refer the scalar chain, then E has to refer to D, D will have to refer to C, and C will have to refer to B and subsequent to A. And as a result, it will further lower down from A to O, which will take some longer time, as well as it will take a longer procedure. But if this is a matter of emergency or kind of immediate clarification required, then in such cases E can directly interact with O or can get the problem resolved. And this kind of exception in the case of scalar chain is referred as gangplank. And this kind of process helps in terms of wastage of resources are minimized, communication is very effective, overlapping of work is avoided. Now, if we refer the seventh number of principle of organizing, then subordination of individual interest to the general interest. It means that interest of an organization are supreme and it should take priority over the interest of any individual interest. So if you refer this visual, we are finding that the goal and the objective of the organization are supreme than the individual's goals. So for example, the employee wants to maximize his salary, then in this particular case he has to work hard, and as a result the objective or the goals of the organization will meet, and as a result the profit margin will help employees in getting the remuneration hike or the salary revision. So organization must find ways to reconcile the tension between individual and organization interest, especially when such kind of phenomena occurs. And as far as the 8th number of principle of organizing is concerned, adequate authority has to be referred. For example, when the top level manager is giving the task or asking the subordinate to do some work, as a part of responsibility. So in such cases, the superior has to give a kind of adequate authority to the subordinate. As a result, the subordinate will be able to complete the desired assignment or the desired task in the designed way or in a proper way as per the expectation. Else, he won't be able to do that. So authority delegated to a manager should be adequate to take decision in this respect. And if we refer the 9th number of principle of responsibility, then on delegating authority to a subordinate, superior cannot take any excuse of responsibility. It means the superior will be responsible even if he has delegated the authority to the subsequent superior, in fact subsequent subordinate. In this particular case, superior is responsible for the work done by the subordinate, as well as the subordinate must be held responsible for their superior for the delegated task. So in this particular visual, we can see the kind of authorities pass on from the top level to the bottom level, as well as the responsibility is moving from bottom level to the subsequent higher level. If we refer the principle of exception, that is the next principle, then subordinate shall be given complete freedom to perform task and make decision. And here the decision is routine decisions or the day-to-day matters. But in cases where the important decisions or the complex method need to be discussed or need to be finalized, or the tedious decision need to be taken, then in such cases the subordinate can hand over the task or can take the help of the superior. In this particular case, the managers can interfere as a superior and even withdraw the authority delegated to the subordinate. As a result, this helps in reducing wastage of time as well as any unwanted delay in decision implementation. Subsequently, another important 11th number principle is principle of flexibility. In this particular case, there may be some circumstances, there may be some certain situation in near future which can lead to a kind of reshuffling of the organization, rescheduling of the duties, responsibilities and the authority. So whether the organization is having enough setup, enough mechanism to deal such situation, then this is very viable in such cases. For example, there are certain cases, if I refer, then the case of domestic economy to globalization economic policy, means when the economy is from domestic to globalized economy shift is there. Say for example, in the case of telecom, 3G to 4G mobile network is taking place, GST implementation is taking place, new innovation and development is taking place in the market. So whether the organization in terms of its different departments are able to manage such changes, such flexibility do the organization is having or not. So that concept, that principle has to be followed in such cases. Another important principle is the principle of decentralization, or in fact the principle of centralization. Here the centralization means to retain the decision making powers at the top level, and when the reverse is there, it means the decision making powers are subsequently given, delegated, so that will be decentralized. So in order to meet the routine matters, they can be decentralized, it can be delegated to the subsequent authorities by delegating the authorities, while the important or the crucial authority in terms of the powers can be retained by the top managers, that is the superiors. The last number of principle is the principle of initiative, that helps the different subordinates in terms of getting their feedback, in terms of taking their input, in terms of plans for the improvement purposes. So the employees, the workers must be encouraged to participate in decision making process. So this is all about the different principles of the organizing. We will meet shortly with the other important topic.
Dear friends, we hope that you have learned all the principles of organizing, and we would be discussing more, as we have told you in the opening also, that we are going to discuss on the authority, accountability and responsibility, but we will be meeting after a very short break. Hello friends, welcome back to this session, and in this session we are going to talk on authority, accountability and responsibility, and for this discussion we have once again with us Dr. V.V. Arya. So I would like to request Dr. V.V. Arya to carry forward the session, and friends, we hope that you would be learning more once again in this session, as well as if you want to ask questions from Dr. V.V. Arya, then you can call us at 1-800-110-430, but you are requested to call in the last 10 minutes. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Viewers, as far as the concern of this organization concept is there, then three important terms are there that are there in terms of its importance, in terms of their interrelations, in terms of their applicability in the management concept, which is the authority, responsibility and the accountability. As far as the first, authority, is concerned, any task if given to someone else, then it has to be given in terms of the powers, in terms of the rights to execute that. So this is something, the part of the authority. It means right to give the orders. So if one in an organization is having the right to pass on the order, it means that person is having the authority. That authority is given by the statutory provisions. Maybe one is having that position from the statutory provisions. For example, the project manager, he is having the authority to give orders to his juniors, maybe assistant project manager, maybe deputy project manager, like that. So in this particular case, the power of an individual to use and allocate the resources efficiently or to take decisions is there. And on the other hand, it is the right to take decisions inherent in a managerial position, to tell people what to do and expect them to do in the same manner. And when we refer the kind of flow or the kind of orders, then it is flowing from the top level of layer to the bottom level of the layer. It means the superior are having the authority, they are giving it to the subordinates. Subsequently, authority without responsibility may lead to misuse of authority. And if you refer this particular visual, then we will find that there are three levels of hierarchy in the organization, and in this particular case, the top one, this person is the manager, who is subsequently giving the authority, means the orders to the subsequent three different managers, which are the subordinate to the superior. And these three different managers are subsequently are the authority, which are giving the orders to these 8 persons in 2 different groups. Therefore, the authority is being passed from the top layer to the bottom layer of the staff or the subordinates, like this. Now, if you refer the kind of definition given by 2 different eminent persons, Henry Fayol, then authority he has defined in terms of the right to give orders and the power to exact obedience. At the same time, Mooney and Raleigh has defined authority in terms of the principle at the root of organization, and so important that it is impossible to conceive of an organization at all unless some person or persons are in a position to require action of others. Now, if you refer the kind of important examples with reference to the authority, then these are the important examples which can better define the kind of authority in the business phenomena. For example, a director of a company may have following authority. Number 1, to make hiring decision, to take investment decision, to decide on purchase of certain item at certain price for an organization, to choose a vendor or supplier, to set priorities or deadlines, to enter into a MOU, or to sign financial accounts. So this is part of the authority he is having with reference to the subordinates. So these are the powers inherited in the position of the director in a company, in an organization. Subsequently, if we refer the concept of the responsibility, then this is a kind of obligation. It comes from inside. It means the subordinate obligation to complete the task assigned to him as part of the authority given by the superior to the subordinate. At the same time, it flows at the reverse order. It means from bottom to the upward level. As far as without adequate authority is concerned, responsibility leads to discontent and dissatisfaction among the employees. So, if we refer this particular visual, you will find that there is a reverse order of the flow of the responsibility, that is bottom to upward direction, like this. And if we refer the important definitions given in the case of responsibility by the management gurus, then Theo Hammond has defined responsibility as the obligation of a subordinate to perform the duty as required by his superior. And the Davis has defined responsibility as an obligation of individual to perform assigned duties to the best of his ability under the direction of his executive leader. Now, if you refer the case of the responsibility in terms of the important set of corporate-based examples, then there are certain examples. As a case of the project manager, he may have certain responsibilities, for example, to complete a assigned project on time. The manager will have to manage existing project considering allocated funds under the respective budget heads. He is also responsible to comply with all legal and technical formalities required to complete the project. He is also responsible in terms of to ensure all security measures while executing the project. Now, if we refer the third important aspect in the authority, responsibility and accountability relation, then accountability is something called the answerability. In this particular case, the answerability for the final outcome. It is the liability created for the use of authority. It means obligation to report to higher authority on using authority in discharging the responsibility. Once authority has been delegated and responsibility accepted, one cannot deny accountability. And it is very important that every employee is accountable for the job assigned to him, and the employee is supposed to complete the job as per the expectations of the superior. McFarland has defined the accountability in terms of the obligation of an individual to report formally to his superior about the work he has done to discharge the responsibility. As an example, if we need to have a better clarity on the accountability part, then we can have the kind of project manager and the accountability belongs to him. So in this particular case, project manager is answerable in case bridge constructed under the project collapse. So he is answerable on that. He has to justify why this happened. He has to specify the reasons for that. Answerability for financial irregularities observed in the project. So he is again answerable to such questions. So if we refer the kind of authority, responsibility and accountability relationship, then through this pyramid visual we can find that these are the 6 level of hierarchy, where director is at the top, subsequent the president, vice president, manager, superior and worker. The top position holder, top manager, is having the authority which he is delegating. Subsequently, the responsibility is assigned, and in this particular case it is also flowing downward, but the responsibility of worker is towards the superior. The responsibility of superior is towards the manager. And as far as the accountability is concerned, is also in the reverse mode, that is from bottom to upward direction. And there are certain differences which make these similar look like words to have a different meaning. Therefore, we have to refer these concepts in terms of the differences. So authority is different to the responsibility on different basis. For example, as far as the concept of authority is concerned, it is power of superior to give orders. As well as the responsibility is concerned, it is obligation to perform the assigned duty. If we refer the sources of origin of authority is concerned, it emerges from the formal position in the organization. That is the position of the superior. Subsequently, the responsibility source of origin is from the emergence of superior-subordinate relationship. Then as far as the flow of the information or the authority is concerned, it is downward, that is from top to bottom, while in the case of responsibility it is reverse, that is upward, from bottom to upward. As far as the purpose of the authority is concerned, it is for the purpose of making the decision and get the decisions executed by the subordinate. As far as the responsibility purpose is concerned, it is to execute the duties assigned by the superior to the subordinate. And the duration aspect is also important with reference to the authority, where it continues for a longer period, while in the case of responsibility, once the task is over or task is completed, then the responsibility is over. Now similarly, the responsibility and accountability are different from each other, and there are three important bases of difference which demarcate them as two different concepts. Responsibility is the obligation to perform the assigned duty, whereas accountability is the answerability of the superior towards the work performed by the person concerned. As well as if we refer the sources of origin is concerned, then the relationship between subordinate and superior are there in the case of responsibility, and in the case of accountability, source of origin is through the delegation of authority. And when we refer the delegation aspect, then in the case of responsibility, it can be delegated, that is basically to partial extent, to some extent, through the assignment, through the assigning the responsibility, but it cannot be delegated to the subsequent person. And if we refer some of the important points that need to be referred while referring these three different aspects, then accountability is something which delegation of authority needs sensible decision. It means this particular authority is something, while making the delegation of the authority, one has to be very careful. It cannot be blindly delegated to the subordinate, because if some authority which is very crucial, which is very key to the organization is delegated, then the person concerned to whom the delegation of authority is made may not be successful. Therefore, one has to see the viability in terms of the competence, in terms of the viability, whether that particular authority can be completed on time or not, whether that particular person is skillful, whether that particular subordinate is able to complete that task on time, is having the capability to complete that or not. So accordingly, the delegation of authority can be made. Subsequently, the authority can be withdrawn in case of dissatisfaction. This is another important aspect in terms of authority, because if there is a kind of dissatisfaction which is realized in between the process of execution or in terms of the functioning of a specific task, then it is the duty, it is the part of the authority of the superior to withdraw the authority given to the subordinate. Otherwise, it may lead to a kind of mess, it can lead to a kind of collapse of the system or a kind of unfairness among the task assigned to the subordinate. As far as the important points to remember with reference to the responsibility aspect, then no two employees should be assigned the same responsibility, because it can lead to a kind of conflict, it can lead to a kind of confusion. As we have seen in the case of the unity of command, then what we have seen, what we have observed, that two different superior cannot have one subordinate as a common subordinate, because if two different superior are issuing orders or giving authority to one individual, then the kind of confusion will emerge in such cases, whether that particular subordinate has to follow the order of X superior or the Y superior. That may lead to a kind of confusion, and as a result, this responsibility will be very difficult to perform. As far as the boundaries of the responsibility is concerned, it should be fixed. One has to be clear-cut, demarcate what exactly the responsibility of one would be. As a result, one should not cross that particular limit, and he has to be limited towards that particular responsibility assigned to him. He should not cross that. He should be restricted to that particular area as a part of the assignment of the responsibility given to a particular person. As an example, if you try to understand, then in the marketing division, if the market or the researcher are there, then task related to market research, if assigned to them, then they will be part of the market research, which may include the survey, which may include the interviews, which may include the data analysis. But as far as the report writing is concerned, yes, they may be part of that. But if they are assigned that responsibility, then only they should be execute that. They should be part of that. Else, the other person will take care of that particular part. As far as the accountability or the important aspect or the important component with reference to the accountability are concerned, then it is required to explain or justify a reason for one's action. It means that task completed by the superior or the subordinate has to justify in terms of the accountability, in terms of the answerability, while justifying the reason for the action done by that particular person. So this is all about this authority, responsibility and the accountability concept. So just to conclude about this particular aspect, these three different component or the terms with reference to the organizing function, we can say that these three terms are very key, very crucial, and their reference has to be referred in such a manner that the authority has to be executed or the order has to be issued in such a manner so that the appropriate action or appropriate need, if is there, can be addressed. Similarly, the responsibility has to be in such a manner or the assignment of the task is in such a manner that it can help the manager to understand and he is able to complete it within the time frame, and subsequent to that, adequate authority has to be delegated to complete the responsibility or the assigned task. And at the same time, the last important aspect, that is the accountability, is in terms of any undo or anything goes wrong. So in that particular case, the subordinate is answerable to the superior, what went wrong, why it happened, and what was the reason behind it. So all that justification, all the reason, he has to specify with reference to the answerability aspect. So this is all about today's session. Thank you.
So, dear friends, we have learnt a lot in today's session. First of all, we discussed on the principles of organizing, and later on in the second half, we discussed about the authority, accountability and responsibility. Sir, I just want to know how authority, accountability and responsibility are connected. Are they really connected?
Yes, exactly. For example, as we have discussed in this particular session, initially it is the assignment of the responsibility, which is part of the duty. Some duty has been assigned as a part of the responsibility, but at the same time, if the kind of authority is not given, for example, as a manager, as a project manager, if I have given the if I have assigned something to my junior, that is the subordinate, to make some payment on behalf of me, so that is part of the responsibility to make the payment. But at the same time, if I am not giving him authority to issue the check, so this is something which is not adequate on his part. The third aspect, that is the accountability. If without my authority, or say for example, if I have given the authority, but to a specific limit. Say for example, I may have issued a authority of issuing payment or making payment up to 5 lakh rupees in a year or in a month, for example. So in this particular case, if the subordinate is issuing or making any payment beyond that particular limit, so he will be held liable or he will be accountable for that. He has to justify why such higher amount of payment was made. So any lapse or any difficulty if arises, he has to be answerable on that aspect. So yes, all these three are well connected and one cannot be left behind within this particular three relations.
Does the delegation of authority instills positivity and confidence among the subordinates?
Yes, of course, it makes such confidence among the subordinate. For example, this is something supportive because this is something that the subordinates learns. This is something that subordinates get the experience of doing things which something that the superiors are having. So as a part of the decentralization, this authority is delegated. And for example, if we take the example of any big corporate structure, for example the banks, the public sector banks, we will find that they are having the corporate office say in one location, but they are having regional offices, they are having the general offices, and within that they are having the branches. So this hierarchy is such, and if the corporate houses or the corporate office of these banking organization will not, if for example if they are not delegating the authority, then it will be very difficult for the branches or the general offices to subsequently have a close watch or monitoring or the control of the subsequent branches or the authorities within that. So yes, these are very prominent and these are very encouraging aspects while delegation of the authority.
Vice versa, can we say that the delegation of authority also helps the authorities to know the potential of the employees or the subordinates, so that if, for example, the manager is not available and he can confidently delegate his subordinate with a certain work, and he is confident that this subordinate can do the particular work.
Yes, this is one of the important area. As far as the different institutions, if we take the example, then we will find that the top positions, the top managers, they used to delegate the authority, not just for the sake because of the decentralization, but also for the understanding whether their subordinates are able to manage that authority, whether they will be having that confidence, whether they will be able to execute the orders or the kind of authority if passed on to the junior ones. So yes, this is one such positive sign of delegation of authority, and subsequently getting the prominent response or the kind of motivation among the juniors or the subordinates. So yes, this is a positive sign in such cases.
But if you talk about the negative sign, can the delegation of authority raise what we can say the incompetency among the manager, because he knows there is someone to do his work? So can we say that it brings sometimes negativity also?
To some extent, but not to the maximum extent. For example, if I try to share or try to justify this particular point is, if for example delegation of authority is made to someone who is not able to manage that, or someone who is not able to do justice to the authority delegated to him, so in such cases it is a kind of failure of that particular institution or the one who has delegated that authority. The reason behind it, that while delegating the authority, it is the part of the superior. He must have to have a clarity in terms of the subordinate capabilities, subordinate skills, subordinate experience, whether he or she will be able to manage that authority or not. So this is something, the negative aspect behind the delegation of authority. So this is something which has to be taken care, the capabilities of the managers. So these aspects have to be referred while referring the delegation aspect, delegation of the authority.
We have talked a lot on the authority side. If we talk about authority, accountability and responsibility, how important communication plays a role in contributing towards each of?
It is very important. As far as one of the third principle, if I remember, the principle of the span of control is concerned. So that is categorically meant for a kind of a chain of communication. So if, for example, two different departments were there, so in this particular case, what was happening, that one organization, if we can see in the visual as well, that two different set of departments are there, and what is taking place in this particular case, that if there is some urgency in terms of this particular employee of this particular department would like to have a clarity, or maybe in terms of the emergency is there, in terms of critical business problem, he need to know the answer. So in this particular case, the one way of scalar chain is that he has to respond to the particular department, means to which he belong. So if he follow that particular scalar chain, it will take a longer period. By the time he will get the response, it will not serve the purpose. Therefore, there is a concept of gangplank in this particular case. The concerned person of the other department to which this particular query belongs, he can directly approach that particular person and get the query resolved. So in this particular case, the scalar chain and gangplank principle are crucial or plays important role as a part of the communication. Else we have to follow, in general terms, we have to follow the scalar chain, where the kind of protocol has to be followed within the department, and if subsequent other department has to be referred, then up to the top level within the previous department, the information has to be passed on, like what kind of information we are taking from the other department.
With this note, we would like to thank you, Dr. Arya, for giving us elaborate sessions on principles of organizing, as well as on authority, accountability, as well as on responsibility. Friends, if you have any queries, then do write to us at info.cec@nic.in. We would love to give answers to your questions when next time Dr. V.B. Arya visits our studio. Till then, keep watching us. We have uploaded all the lectures pertaining to this series, Business Organization and Management, on YouTube. So this lecture is also going to be uploaded on YouTube soon. Keep watching us, keep writing us. Your feedbacks are very, very important for us. We would be meeting again soon and would be discussing more. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am.